Hey everybody, ronarray here, and I've been testing multiple farming mechanics and different farm techniques. And I think it's a perfect time to start testing bosses as well. I'm going to showcase 50 tier 4 Xesht kills, most of them being done with my flickering strike Amazon and being like one-shot kills, which is pretty impressive. However, the big question is it even profitable to run tier 4 Xesht 50 times? Are we going to make any currency at all, or I'm going to lose currency in the process? So I'm going to do a detailed breakdown showcasing everything that I paid for it and everything that I gained in return. Let's go! So first, let's start with the ergonomics. Running Xesht currently together with weapon swaps that I require to one-shot the boss with my flicker strike is approximately 3 minutes. It's 2 minutes and about like 20 seconds to just run through the whole zone, and around 1 minute to kill the boss and loot it, because unfortunately there is an animation after Xesht is dying, so you will need to wait a little to get your loot. And you're also going to pay 40 exalted approximately for all the runs. That way, for 50 runs I paid 2000 exalted, which is a pretty decent amount. So roughly I paid about 15 divines for the whole run. And it's cheaper than it's been before, but mostly because of the stuff that you're dropping in the process is not really too expensive. So 150-160 minutes, which will be around 2.5 hours, and I think together with sorting items it will be 3 hours, and 15 divines in total price. We also need to keep in mind that while you're fighting Xesht and like monsters in the whole location, there is no experience provided, so you're not going to get any X from Xesht or from monsters, and you just need to focus on the loot. Talking about the loot, important moment here to notice that to get the loot you will need to loot all hands on the floor that appearing during the run. Those hands are going to provide items in the end, and one of the most important part of the run is pretty much breach rings are coming from the hands on the ground. Since I've been playing Flicker Strike, it's been a little harder for me, and I spent a little more time going back and forth to make sure that we are looting all the hands. So first off, let's talk about catalysts. Every run is going to drop from 15 to 20 catalysts approximately, and during the whole run I dropped about 924 catalysts in general. Most of them unfortunately are pretty cheap. So 713 catalysts being just normal ones, most of them just cost like 4 catalysts for 1 exalted and 178 exalted in general. However, Ash catalysts and River catalysts are pretty expensive right now. Ash catalysts cost about 2.6 exalted per each, leading us to calculate 117 Ash catalysts that I dropped right here to 300 exalted. And River catalysts, I dropped about 94 of them, they cost 6.6 exalted right now, which leads to 620 exalted too. All of that together is leading us to receiving about 1100 exalted from catalysts, which is approximately 8.2 divines, and it's a pretty nice number. Consider we paid only 15 for the whole run. And the next part of profit coming from Xesht himself, I dropped about 6 Hand of Wisdom and Action gloves. Those are not really that expensive anymore, but I still think selling them unidentified is probably the better idea. Every gloves that way will cost around 70 exalted, and all of them together will be 420 exalted or 3.2 divines, which is pretty nice number considering the chance to drop them around 13%, so I think I've been even a little lucky. And the next step of just drop from the boss is jewels. It's controlled Metamorphosis, and right now those are pretty cheap, especially unidentified ones. They cost something between like 50 or 60 exalted. I will probably go to count them as 50. I dropped 4 diamond jewels like that, and the chance is pretty much the same like with gloves, so I think here I've been a little less lucky. For 4 of them, if I will sell them for 50 exalteds, I'm going to receive 200 exalteds in general, which is about 1.5 divine right now, so not really a lot of profit from diamonds. I also think those are pretty unpopular and it's harder to sell them, so maybe just gambling them away by identifying is probably a better idea. I also dropped 2 Reliquary keys. One of them is Xesht Reliquary key and one of them is Twilight Reliquary. Twilight Reliquary currently is very cheap, so I'm not going to count it properly, but Xesht Reliquary key is almost 2 divines right now, which is pretty nice and we can just add it to the count. And the last chunk of the profit is White Breach rings. All of those are item level 82, making them very desirable for crafting. Each ring like that costs about 15 exalteds, and I dropped 57 of them. That will lead us to 855 exalteds approximately, or 6.5 divines for all the rings that I dropped, which is a huge chunk of the profit and probably one of the most important things during the whole run. If you will drop more rings, the farming of the Xesht will be more profitable. If you will drop less rings, it will be less profitable. So I think rings right now is probably the most important part of the whole farm in general, especially considering it's pretty stable and the rings are dropping very often. During the run, I think I've been dropping some additional currency as well, mostly chaos orbs and a little exalted orbs here and there. So I think those could be calculated for approximately like half a divine, maybe closer to a divine, which leads us to 22 divines in general for profit. Since we paid 15 divines for entrances, I think the profit here is only 7 divines, and it's not a very bad number considering the whole run took about 3 hours after figuring everything out. And right now it will lead to 2.3-2.5 divines per hour currently if you just run Xesht. But you will need to keep in mind that there's a big percentage of just sorting items right after. The big chunk of the profit right here comes from the white rings, which you can resell, and prices for white rings will go only up further on. I also think that catalysts right now is very bothersome, picking them up pretty hard, but amount of river catalysts is also heavily connected with the profit. And fighting the boss himself is much less profitable, which is funny because most of the items that boss is currently dropping are not even that important. So even if you will run Xesht with like failing the runs, you're probably still going to make profit, because you will still have rings and you will still have catalysts, which are providing the big chunk of it. Unfortunately, boss drops currently are pretty underwhelming, and I hope GG will just buff them later on, because filling one gloves or for example jewel from Xesht cost not a lot and not really desirable is pretty sad. And you can decide by yourself if the farm is worth it for you. I would have in mind that approximately you will have something between 2 and 3 divines in profit per hour, which is definitely not bad, and I think farming 50 Xesht performed much better than I've been expecting myself. So it could be a nice alternative if you still want to farm some currency, you're ready to sort some items, but you don't really want to run maps. So it could be worth it for some people. However, keep in mind that you will need to kill the boss without a lot of issues, perfectly like one-shotting him, and you will also need to pick all the hands on the way down. Since I've been playing Flicker Strike, for me it's been a little harder, and sometimes I just felt the need that I need to stop and click on the hands instead of just running forward. But I don't think it's that big of an issue even with Flicker Strike. But hands heavily connected to the profit, and I recommend to pick all of them if you can. So I think that farm is definitely not that bad as many people would expect, even if it's not that amazing. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you will drop more currency than I'm dropping, especially if you decide to farm Xesht. Ronarray out.